It's 6 a.m. I just drove an hour and a half. To photograph the elk in Cherokee. They're already in the field and they're bugling. I have to whisper walking up. That's an elk bugling in the field. It's their mating call. This is perfect. The fog is gonna make beautiful images. It's that great natural diffusion. I have to be careful. They can be extremely territorial when they're breeding. Last thing I want is to get skewered. You guys can't see it, but there's this great wooden fence line right here. I can use that as cover. That bugle is getting really close. You guys hear that? Holy shit. Holy shit!
A few winters ago, in an attempt to diversify and photograph something without scales, I spent a few weeks in Smoky Mountains National Park following around a herd of elk.
What a way to start the day.
The funny thing about the Smokies is that for how much wildlife there is, there are really a lot of people.
I broke away from the main trail here because there weren't any other people at this spot.
Some places, like the Oconaluftee Visitor Center, where much of this video was filmed, see literally thousands of visitors each year. The traffic has a huge impact on animal behavior, and sometimes that impact leads to confrontations. Confrontations that could probably be avoided, but sometimes aren't.
I don't know how far to go. I can't see the elk. I believe they're in the field to my right. The last thing I want is to stumble up on a big bull in the fog. There's all these dark objects and I can't tell what they are. They could be elk. I've decided to go ahead and set up here. I don't want to walk much further. Guys, I can't tell you how scary this is. There's male elk. Extremely territorial bull elk bugling on both sides of me, back and forth. There's this fence here. It's part of the old historic site that's here. Oh my god, I can see a silhouette. Oh my god. I'm gonna shut up now. There are 3 of them. They're bugling non-stop and slowly coming my way. There's a fence behind me that I can jump over if I need to. This is one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done. We're only at 40 millimeters. Those are not far away. The one looks like a huge bull. Here's my setup. I've got the 7D and the long lens on the tripod. The elk are over there. I'm just waiting for the sun to rise now. I luckily have these fence posts right over my head. I think if one were to charge, I could dodge backwards, and I don't think they'd be able to get to me. They're coming straight at us. This is absolutely nerve-wracking. I don't think that I'm going to get charged, but I have absolutely no idea what I'm basing that assumption on. This big male in the field has to bugle to defend his territory. And if a smaller male tries to challenge him, they'll actually fight over the female. Guys, this is so amazing. All these little dots that I can see in the field walking up in the dark are elk. There's a massive, massive herd. There's probably 35 elk in the field right now. I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but all over there, those are all elk in the distance. They're all staying away because of this one male. People showing up. I'm gonna go ahead and put away this camera, focus on getting a few more still images, and then head out of here. Some of the other photographers are getting here now. They're walking around the river to try and photograph the elk crossing. Which sounds like pretty good shots to me, but it's also what I always see from this place. The arrival of the mass numbers goes the disappearance of me. Look at all of them. Waking up for their crowd. Noted. Okay. Holy shit. Holy shit! Did you guys see that? Okay, sir. You win. Currently being chased around by an elk. Okay. Okay. We're done here. Well, dumped the camera and took an antler to the hand. Could have been worse. Just goes to show you that you have to respect these animals. You have to respect this place. Even though there's a million people standing around, doesn't mean the animal's any less dangerous. These are massive wild animals that will do whatever they want to you. And we're lucky that we're not on the menu, we're not direct competition. they don't typically want to hurt us. That one clearly felt intimidated or challenged by my presence. Can't blame him, I was pointing a camera in his face. Even sitting back, even being respectful of their space, staying far away, I did not approach that animal in any way. He still charged me. It's a good reminder to all of us, photographers, hobbyists, tourists, if you're standing there taking a selfie with a bull elk right behind you, you might want to rethink that. Hand is a little stiff. I'm gonna bruise the back of it pretty good. I wanted to offer a little bit of clarity to anyone still watching the video. I shot that several years ago, and at the time I wrote off that encounter as a close call, but nothing too terribly serious. The next day, my mom sent me an article with a headline that read something like, "Man killed after elk gored out his kidney?" Not to make light of it, but pretty wild experience to receive that text from your mom a day after you had a close call with an elk. These animals are like as tall as horses, and then on top of that they have a crown full of daggers basically, so it's really a pretty intimidating animal to be that close to. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. No person should ever be that close to an elk. It's a little unclear in the video, but I had gotten there really early, before any of the other people, and I had walked out along this old wooden fence line that's part of the historic site that's there. The fence line doesn't actually separate anything, it's just a fence line. It's open on either end, and elk go all around it on both sides. And so do people. There's signs saying not to enter the fields during the breeding season, but the rest of the area is open to the public year-round. I was leaving, and I had walked the rest of the way around that fence line, turned around, and come back on the other side of it. And right before I left, I sat down in a little cove where there was a fence on both sides of me and a fence behind me. I was about right there, just looking at the back of my camera, making sure that some of the photos I shot looked okay. While I was sitting there, just kind of absorbed in the back of the camera, I looked up and noticed that the big bull elk that I had been photographing all morning had walked several hundred meters across the field over to where I was now. Whether he was upset with me for being there all morning or what, I don't know. For all I know, I made some grand mistake here, but from my perspective at the time, I had been respectful and given the animal lots of space, and it wasn't until I had walked far away and actually cornered myself that the elk came up and approached me. Once I was back there and the elk was approaching, I couldn't get away without walking towards him, which felt like a bad idea. So instead, I opted to play the only card I had left and just hit record. Like I mentioned earlier in the voiceover, animal behavior is greatly affected by the presence of humans. The more people there are, the more an animal may feel threatened or challenged, and in all likelihood, it sought out the animal with the biggest, most extravagant apparatus, which happens to be my camera, and decided that that was the thing to challenge. That's my take on what happened. The accuracy of that is all in here. Who knows? Maybe some animal behaviorists out there can educate me on what happened. Elk are amazing, and I don't want anyone to be scared off from going to see them. If you have the opportunity to make it out to the park and see these elk, it's really worth it, and I think you should do it. Just please be respectful of these animals and their space, even, and perhaps especially, when the people around you aren't.